The Halo universe is filled with wonder, mystery, and fascinating discoveries around every corner. With so much to explore, four friends decided it was about time that they booted up their consoles and discussed this universe that has grabbed their attention since childhood. JumperScape Audio kindly welcomes you to join them in the library.
Hello everybody, welcome back to The Library, the show where we talk about Halo lore, and of course we're talking about Halo lore today because we're talking about one of the best contributors to Halo's lore and canon, one of the best, in my opinion, writers and authors that is in the collection of all of the folks who have gotten to contribute to it. And before we get there, though, because everyone's excited. I know everyone's excited. I was excited. All right. The things are getting excited. James, are you excited?
I'm excited.
Shane?
I'm excited.
Okay, that's good. I'm so happy about that. Before we get into that, of course, if you want to join our community, you can go to discord.gg/JumperScape. Lots of conversation happening there. Book Club is still freaking out about Epitaph right now. So if you want to join in on them, they're being very careful about spoilers. So you won't have to worry about that if you're joining in late. And that's all available to you. If you want to support us directly, that's going to be at patreon.com/JumperScape. That's all just got a bunch of stuff that we have for you guys there. So if you want to get some sweet benefits, then you can go over there. Otherwise, I don't want to talk about anything else right now. So let's just hop right over. I would love to introduce Mrs. Kelly Gay, writer of Halo Epitaph, writer for one of the best trilogies, in my opinion, the Ace of Spades trilogy. I am so happy to have you on. Welcome to the library. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm doing well. How are you?
We're fantastic because, we get to talk about Epitaph today, and that's something that we have been kind of waiting to do for so long. It's only been, I don't even think a week, but it's been too long.
I finished the book on Saturday, so it's not been that long for me.
One of our book club members finished that book the day it released.
Who was it?
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that was our good friend Guyver.
So audio?
Okay. On that one,
audio?
he finished it on audio because the book didn't show up fast enough for his liking. So it was fantastic. I myself finished it on Friday, so only a couple days ago, and I'm still reeling. It's a fantastic
this is
story.
the first time I've actually got to talk about it.
Good. Good for us. I'm excited about that.
I have a lot to talk about too.
That's great. Fantastic. I'm happy that we get to be the first people to really hear about stuff. Cause there's a lot of stuff to ask about, especially this story. Yeah. So I just want to get started on it just because I will run out of words so quickly if I try to keep on going without immediately talking about this. Just to clarify for everybody listening, we are doing a two-parter. So this is all going to be non-spoiler. We'll talk about the book a little bit, but not too much, because quite literally, I think if you talk about any small detail about this book, it might spoil something because it is a really, really rich book. It is a fantastically rich novel.
Oh yeah. And it reads like a dream, I have to say. I struggle to read. I have a very small attention span, and whenever I can get through a book in a week, that's always a very good sign. And it's got me interested.
Thank you.
It's got me very interested in going back and going through the Forerunner trilogy. And honestly, that I might as well lead into a question. I'm just wondering what that trilogy of books and the work of Greg Bear has kind of meant to you, and how it's kind of guided you in your writing.
Well, gosh, that's a big question.
Yeah. Heavy hitter right off the rip.
Yeah, the Forerunner saga has been part of my life since I started Renegades, really. So, I had read the trilogy before that because I'm a Halo fan and I'm a Halo player. and I've read the media, but I had only given it one read through prior to Renegades. So when I was asked to continue Ryan Forge's story after I did Smoke and Shadow, the novella, and Jeremy, I was on the phone with Jeremy Patnode, who is going to write Empty Throne.
Yeah.
That's the next Halo book coming out. Yeah. But he had said, we talked a little bit about what I thought for her story, for Ryan Forge's story. And he goes, so what do you think about including 343 Guilty Spark in your story? And I said, I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. I'm so shocked. I didn't expect that at all. So, but that's really when I started doing my deep dive into the Forerunner Saga lore, basically, because for his story, and then later in Point of Light for the librarian story, and then later, obviously for Epitaph, I had to do 3 really big deep dives. And I want to know it all. I'm the type of person, I just, I don't want to do cliff notes. I really want to get into the material and know it and understand it. And just, Greg Bear is just, he's the most amazing writer because he can write the most complex thing, but do it with such brevity. And I don't know if you've noticed that about his work, but he doesn't take pages and pages to explain one thing or whatever. He can just take one little sentence and it has such an impact. And I just love that about his writing, but I'm going off on a tangent.
Oh no, go ahead.
We have plenty of tangents on here, so that's fine.
It's really easy to do. It really is easy.
Well,
but,
no, keep on going ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
go ahead, because I feel like I'm going to lose my place anyway.
Okay, that's fair. Here, I'll just get you on another one. Because I wanted to ask in relation to Greg Bear, because obviously because of this being a Didact story, it has to be, Greg Bear has to be part of this conversation. I wanted to know, with Epitaph, was that a concept? Did Greg Bear have a planned novel like this? Do you know if he had a story like this that was prepared before, unfortunately, he passed? Is that something that, did he leave any notes, transcripts, anything like that?
Not that I know of. I mean, I don't know personally what he had done behind the scenes, but as far as from 343's perspective and talking with me about it, I'm not aware of anything that's been done or anything that was relayed to me. So
okay, that's perfect.
I wish I could answer that. But I can't.
There's a lot of smaller details that everyone is always curious about and always interested in trying to find out about, and that's one of the ones that I'm always curious about. Is with the authors of Halo, we're told that there's a good deal of communication between the authors, but I don't know how much is actually there.
Yeah, it just depends on the book and the story. It varies from book to book.
Did you have any assistance, or I actually heard that there was some assistance on the side of the community writers from 343. They were able to go in and at least help fill in some of the lore gaps to help fill in some of that flow in the narrative. Is that accurate?
For Epitaph or just for any book?
For Epitaph.
Well, we started out, I'm not even quite sure how to answer that, but I can just tell you that. I know it's very complicated sometimes, but we basically started out that book because I'm just going to tell you the whole story, okay?
Go for it. We're kicking back.
Very down.
We're going to start. I'm going to take you back to the beginning. But that started by and there may be more stuff before that. I'm sure that there are, but basically Jeremy and Jeff Easterling, who I'm sure you all know as Grim Brother One, when they were working on the recent Halo Encyclopedia that came out, what was that, last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah. So they were working on that and writing the Didact section, and they just really saw a need for his story to be told and for him to have, not only a long overdue ending, but a well-deserved one. So so it started from there, and then I had just gotten the email basically like, hey, do you want to write a Didact novel? And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. But sometimes, like, honestly, sometimes their emails are just that. They're just like that. So they had already had a sort of general idea of what they wanted for the character, like certain, I'll say synchrons, because they are defining moments in the Didact's life. And they wanted him to look back on those moments and kind of learn from his past mistakes. And then I don't know if we're getting into spoilery territory here, so I'll try. Anyway, and then to look at like current things happening in the universe, and kind of using that as a parallel to also kind of show him his past mistakes and get him on the road to redemption. So they started out with that general idea, and I think they, had some things written up about that. And then I took a look at that, and I actually started trying to write from that. But then I realized that there was a lot of connective tissue that we needed to do to get him through those points and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I need to turn my light on. My car's getting really dark. Sorry.
You're fine.
No, you're all good.
But anyway, to get him on the road to redemption. So we went back and we had another round, but it was pretty light. We didn't fill in a lot of gaps or anything like that. But what I love about 343 is they really give me a really giant sandbox to play in. They let me be really creative, and they don't really say you have to write A, B, C, D, E, F. They kind of just tell you what they want, what they're thinking of, what they want the end result to be. And they each have their likes. Like, it'd be really cool if we could add this, or really cool if we could add that. But mostly they let me just take those that outline that we did and then just run with it. And I basically, it's like Fight Club when I work. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to share anything. So I basically disappeared for about I don't think I talked to anybody for 9 months or something like that. 7 months, 7 to 9 months. Not even my editor at Simon & Schuster. I feel like I have to get the story out, and I don't want anything to mess with that initial idea. And then it's okay if it's not liked or we need to change things, but at least I got the general story I wanted to tell out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So basically I went in hibernation mode and my writer's den or whatever, and wrote that. And then once that's done, and then I go through several drafts on my own, and that's when I really start kind of making more connections and pulling in lore and things like that. And then I'll do, I don't even know for this book. I think I did I had 5 or 6 drafts before I even showed it to my editor.
Wow.
And then, there's, you read the book. There's a lot to juggle.
Indeed.
in the
There's
story. And not only that, a lot to get right, So you're always referring to other media and material to make sure you got it right. But then he saw it, he read it, and we always do a revision, and then we do a line edit. And then after that's done and the book's in good shape, then it goes to 343. And that's probably it's equal parts nerve-wracking and really, really, really exciting. Because I just can't wait. to see what they say and see what they think. And I withheld a few things, like I withheld everything because I didn't share anything with anybody. So I really love the fact that they could read this book kind of as a reader. They got surprises too. Like they didn't know everything that was going to happen or how it was going to happen. So that's like a really joyful thing for me as a writer, even to give them those kind of surprises too. And then so I think they read it together. Alex and Jeff read it together. They might have even been on Zoom together reading it out loud. I think that's what they said, but but they said they had a lot of fun. It might have shed some tears. So, but then after I get everyone's kind of feedback, and then we do a kind of like overall everybody kind of edit, and they go through and they're very careful with the lore. They care a lot about it. It's really important to them to get everything right too. So, we just go through and we make sure that we've done everything we can. And then there'll be, moments where they'll be like, this would be really cool to add here or there and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the evolution of the story and how it all happened. And then it just goes to copy edits and galleys. And I don't think people realize like how many drafts and how many eyes go into a book and a story like this. But I think that kind of sums it up. I hope.
That's all beautiful. I actually I love that.
I love the idea that like basically you're providing 343 who obviously most of the time know everything about Halo's story and where it's going to go, and you're letting them basically be a fan again and experience a Halo story completely blindly.
Yeah.
And it must be incredible.
And I know.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was saying it must be incredibly daunting to have the control over a character that many find to be one of the most compelling characters in Halo's canon, and then try to combine all of that with, I mean, this novel is probably the most lore rich out of most of the novels, if not the most lore rich now.
And it does such an amazing job of connecting a lot of like unanswered questions.
Yeah. So I'd imagine it was daunting. Like that had to be almost, was it a frustrating process to try to get all that lore figured out?
No, I love lore, you guys. I absolutely love it. I just want to just swim in it all day. I love the lore. And this probably sounds weird and people might not believe me, but I do not find it daunting. I find it really exciting. I think the only time that I really felt daunted, and maybe not daunted is the right word, but like pressure, was when they asked if I wanted to include 343 Guilty Spark in my book, because that was the first time I think that I had been asked to actually write a character that was from the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was more pressure there, like just to get it right. I know, people have big feelings about, Guilty Spark and stuff like that. So, but when it came to the librarian and the Didact, I was more excited. And the Didact, he's a big character, and a lot of people have big feelings about him. And so I did feel pressure, but it was like the good kind of pressure, the kind that makes you like want to do a really, really good job and satisfy people with what you come up with. So the answer is no, I wasn't daunted.
It's great. I mean, you did a fantastic job. I think that, like I've said already, I've hyped up this book so much because it had completely let me be completely frank with you. The daily life that I live is very much work focused, and I have to be on top of everything and focus on everything at once. And I was doing this thing where I was reading the novel and listening to the audiobook at the same time, sometimes swapping back and forth between the two. And I completely lost track of time on a couple things. And that speaks a lot to how much that novel pulled me in, especially because like there were some things that it fell a little behind on, but that's my fault, really.
Yeah.
So I actually do want to kind of rewind the clock slightly, because we've talked a little bit now about the work that you've done with 343, the way that the team, Alex, Jeff, they have assisted, and the story of how a novel really gets written, at least on your front with 343. But I kind of want to take it way back to Charlie Madigan. And mostly because I wanted to know if that series was the thing that, like, did 343 find you? Did they find you through that series?
No, not at all. I think so. I don't even think they had read any of my work prior to Halo Fractures. So when I read the Charlie Madigan series, which was, I don't know, it's coming up on 20 years, I think, that I started that first book. The editor who bought my first book was Ed Schlesinger, who edited the Halo books.
Oh, okay.
And this was, so this was before, he was editing those books even, I think. So I had written that first book, and then 3 more for him, all in the same series. And so we did like a book a year, and I think 2008 or 9 it came out. So for the next 4 years we worked together, and then I wrote 3 more, which is a young adult series, not for Ed, but in Simon & Schuster, just with a different editor. But he and I, we grew to have such a great friendship, and I just love him so much. He's such a great editor, and he's such a great person to work with, and he has so much excitement for the books and for Halo in particular. But losing my train of thought. So I wrote the YA series, and then I had a little lull in what I was doing, and I got this email, and I remember it was summer, and I was sitting on my couch, and I get this email from my agent, and she says, "Are your ears burning?" And immediately, I have to email her back, like, "What's up?" And she was like, "I just had lunch with Ed, and we were talking about you." And she said, "How do you feel about writing a Halo short story?" And immediately I said, yes. I mean, I didn't even have to think about it. I was just like, yes, I don't care what they want. Whatever, I will do it. So she got back to him, and then he and I got up. So we got to kind of come back together after, I think we hadn't worked together for like maybe 2 or 3 years at that point. So it was so nice to come back and work with him again. And we started off with, they said the parameters for Halo Fractures for the authors that came in was pitch us an idea of anything in post-Covenant War era. Oh. And I was like, okay, but I love the Spirit of Fire. And that, but it wasn't post-Covenant War era. So I thought, well, at the time, it was one of the biggest mysteries in Halo, what happened to the Spirit of Fire. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to kind of like figure that out. And I love John Forge. He's one of my all-time favorite Halo characters. And so I just kind of figured, how could I bring all this together so that I can place the story in the time period they want. And so that's where Ryan came from. And that's our origin story with me and Ed and Halo. I mean, and Ryan Forge.
That's so neat. That's kind of like, they straight up were just like, here's the floor, come up with a character, you get to keep them, it's yours.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so much fun.
I think too that Yeah, they I mean, they brought authors from their end, to do short stories, and then Ed brought, people he knew, and he was trying to fill spots to make it, a book. But I think they really trusted him to bring people that he thought could do a good job. But he and I, from working together before, we share a love of video games, and he already knew that. So he said, I was one of the people that leapt to his mind when they were looking for extra authors. So thank goodness he asked, because none of this might ever happen.
Hey there, Halo fans. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our friends right after these messages.
And I know of one particular member of our book club that would be absolutely distraught if this had never happened. We have one particular member who is such a massive fan of the Ace of Spades trilogy and talks about it rather frequently. Yeah. So it would have been absolutely a tragedy.
Well, I feel very fortunate that they kept on with me, because it was just a short story and it could have just ended there.
Yeah.
But I did leave it a little open ended, so in hopes that maybe I could write more, and so then I got to do the novella, and then from there, I did Renegades and Point of Flight, and then RUBICON Protocol, and now EPITAPH.
That's so much fun. I love that. And have you, with these novels, have you actually, I know you've mentioned already that you've played the games and everything. Have you actually gone and managed to read every single Halo novel? Or is that something that's like, since you write so much, is that a lot to do?
Yeah, that's a lot to do. Like, I've read quite a few. But I have not read them all. And I haven't played a video game in about a year, which is crazy, but I've just been, so hyper focused. I went right from RUBICON Protocol, which is a pretty big book, then right into the Didact. So I actually am playing less and reading less, but writing way more. So it's a trade-off, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly paid off. Once again, this work has been utterly wonderful. I'm curious now, because now that you mentioned RUBICON Protocol, it actually reminds me. There's one particular creator out there. I don't know if you saw this when it happened, but did you see that there was a particular Halo player by the name of Halo Guy YT who went and found all the locations within RUBICON Protocol? Yeah.
Yes.
It was hilarious.
That was so amazing. I just thought that was so great that things you write can just bring people to go out and do things like that. And I just thought it was so cool. I watched his whole video. I loved it.
He'll be super thrilled. He listens to this show, so he'll be so thrilled.
Okay. Hi, Halo guy.
Well, we're kind of coming close to the end of our non-spoiler episode, but before we end up here, we actually have quite a few audience members who submitted questions for you, if you're willing to hear them out.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we screened them all.
Okay. So is this before I answer them, are we still on spoiler free?
We are on spoiler free. I made sure that none of these have to do anything with the plot of EPITAPH. We're safe.
Those come later.
Okay.
Yes. We have We have much of that later on. So to kick us off, one user by the name of They Call Me Preacher asked, do you have a favorite Halo character? Which I think you answered that just a second ago, actually.
I did answer it, but here's the thing. I want to say no, because I cycle through favorites.
Oh, okay.
And I would imagine a lot of people do too. Initially, it was the Master Chief Cortana duo for me. That was my favorite. And then John Forge. But then once we came around to Halo 4, I just fell in love with the librarian. I thought she was so cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then Guilty Spark was my favorite for a while. And now, of course, the Didact is my favorite. But yeah, it's just like it's a cyclical thing. Like, I don't think there's one that went out over the other, because then when I think of the others, I'm like, oh, I like them too so much. So it's hard to pick just one.
So
really.
we could say her favorite character in Halo is the Journey.
But yeah, the great journey.
The great journey indeed.
You know that if you get to know that much lore, it's your favorite characters are just bound to cycle around.
Mine's never changed.
Yeah,
James is our Covenant guy. He's our local Covenant
It's
boy.
the arbiter.
He's oh man. Next question we got is from Perplexed Panic,
Okay.
who asks, "What's your favorite and least favorite part of your creative writing process?"
This is so easy to answer. My very, very, very least favorite part of it is writing the rough draft. I hate it. When there's nothing, I don't mince words about it. When there's nothing but a white screen in front of me, I can't stand it. I'm not patient when I write, and it's not that I don't know what to. Well, that's not true. I was going to say I don't know what to write, but sometimes I don't know what to write, and I'll literally just write, a scene, and then I'll write and blah blah blah. I literally write blah 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 in the draft because I don't know what to say or what's happening, but it allows me to keep going, so I don't get stuck right there. So I'll just write something really stupid, and then I'll just keep going. But I just want all the weight gone. I can't stand it. I want to get in there and start crafting and shaping. It's like clay, shaping it into something else. I just don't like driving for days to get to the store to get the clay,
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, my favorite part is creating new lore. That's just like the sweetest thing on the planet. I love it. And then also when I'm at a certain draft where I can start really fine tuning my words and sentences, like I just like love wordsmithing, like word crafting, like just like a cool turn of phrase and fine tuning action and dialogue and stuff like that. I just love it. But I just really hate the white when nothing's there. So it's easy answer for me.
See, now I'm picturing just like in the Didact approach to the domain and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
that would be so funny.
Steps inside and says blah blah blah.
I'm absolutely certain. I know it will never happen, but I know that there are some readers out there who will be like, I want that rough draft. So next question comes from It's Default, back to the games. Do you play the Halo games? And if so, which game is your favorite?
I do. Halo 2.
Yeah.
What's not to love? I mean,
It has the best writing.
We got the
That checks
Arbiter.
out.
We get to defend Earth and go on high charity and stuff. And Halo 4, followed by Halo 4.
That's a solid
close.
pairing. I like that. I think those are both probably the most significant in terms of story.
I think they're both the best written stories.
By far. They're both written very, very well. There's good storytelling in both of those.
Yeah.
Because I love all the Halo stories, but some are definitely a bit more action cliche filled than others. And I feel like Halo 2 and Halo 4 are by far the most nuanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got so much new material from both of those and so much lore. It was really great.
Well, for this next question, Default is back, and he's asking again, do you listen to the Halo soundtracks while you write?
I do. But I don't, it's really weird because I don't like listening to the songs on the track back to back. So I put them on a playlist with like other really cool sci-fi sounding albums, and then hit shuffle so that like I'm not getting the same kind of Halo sound all the way through. I I don't know. It's just a weird thing, but yes, I do. I listen to them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I've been revisiting Halo 4's soundtrack a lot after reading this book.
I love Halo 4
Oh,
soundtrack.
really?
Yeah.
It's
I
so
love it.
it's very underrated.
Extremely.
Very underrated.
Yes, it's different than it's so much different than the original trilogy's soundtrack, and it just set the tone for what the game is about.
Well, it's very Forerunner.
I've always
Yes.
thought that Halo 4 is actually a
Yeah.
perfect way of matching Halo Combat Evolved's mystery vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it does so well, is it kind of puts you into the mindset of you are on Requiem. You're on this Forerunner shield world, and it is just I love it. I'm gonna gush. I'm sorry.
So we got one more from our patrons. This one is from our good friend Guyvertron, and he asks, this one's a rather long one, prepare yourself. He asks, what other works inspired Epitaph? It's like a journey through the afterlife with reflections on the past and interactions with the ghosts in purgatory, leading to a future of peaceful existence. It's quite a journey, and she should be immensely proud of what she's accomplished. Epitaph is the divine comedy of Halo.
Well, thank you for the compliment. It is a little reminiscent of Dante's Inferno. That's sure. But to answer the question, though, I don't, unless your subconscious is just full of all the works that you read, and who knows what comes out when you're writing. But really, like I said before, I just, I was just hyper focused on the Forerunner Saga and the other media like Escalation and like the Halo 4 terminals. Those are the works that like obviously leap out and have influenced me and inspired me. And I intentionally kind of shut out everything else. Just because I felt like it was so important to get the Didact right. Like I didn't want you guys, like, because I know a lot of people have read the Forerunner Saga, and then they're going to carry over to Epitaph, and I didn't want there to feel like, oh, this is a whole different character.
Yeah.
Because I am a different writer. I'm not Greg Bear, and I don't write like him, but I wanted to make sure that kind of like character-wise, it felt really seamless. So I intentionally kind of like didn't watch a lot of TV, or I didn't read any books, and I didn't play games, but just really kind of settled myself in with that story. So if there are like vibes or something else, so that's great, but I don't remember thinking about it.
That's perfectly fine. There's always I think you put it the best actually at the very beginning of that was who knows the things that you've read before that pour into what you write. That's beautiful.
Right. Yeah, that informs everything that you do as a creator. I mean, it really does.
Yeah. Well, now that's the end of the Patreon questions, but I did have one more before we wrapped up this segment, which is straight up. When did you find out that Keith, I refuse to pronounce his last name, voice actor for Didact, was going to be doing the audiobook? Was that just as shocking for you as everybody else?
When did I find out? When did I find out? I'll have to go back and look, but I think it was somewhere after I had finished the rough draft. Because I don't remember initially like writing, thinking Keith was going to read it. But I do remember in later drafts, knowing that he was going to. So it was somewhere around that time. Mm-hmm. But it was fantastic. It was so fantastic. And I was so happy about it because I thought that him had done such a great job with Guilty Spark when he read his part.
Oh, yeah.
In Point of Light. So I thought, man, just every book I write, I want to have the voice actor. I'm getting demanding now.
That would be quite a expectation to set. It's like, oh, a new Kelly Gay novel's coming out. Which actor are they going to pull in this time?
I know. It's almost now that they almost have to do it now. So.
Well, you heard it here first.
No,
Whoever here
don't.
in the higher places are listening to this, that's the standard. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is now.
I was kind of hoping you'd know how to pronounce his last name because I saw his last name. I'm like, my jaw was on the floor. I'm like,
Here's
I'm
the
not even going to try.
I spent an afternoon just trying to memorize it because
Okay.
it's not that hard to pronounce.
I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I'm
Suarez
gonna,
something.
It's not that hard to pronounce. I just don't know.
I don't remember it off the top of my head. I'm going to look at it. I bet I pronounced it
I was
right.
looking at it while you guys were
First try?
asking questions.
Yes.
Let me tell you, there's a lot of silent letters in that last name, James.
There is.
I just call him Keith.
That's probably the easy way to go about it.
Let's see if James can pull it
Sorry.
off.
Keith Zarabaka.
Sarabaka, yes.
Maybe you got that. Who knows?
I
It might be
don't
Baika.
But maybe.
Zarabaika.
We're gonna find out if you got that. I don't know.
Because I think the J would be a ya.
Probably. But yeah, what
I'm
a
a
great
genius.
voice.
What
I'm
can
so
I say?
happy that he was in this. I'm so happy he was in there because
Yeah.
here's the thing. Here's the fun part. Last year at HCS, and I'm just going to end off on this note because this was like the best. This is the one of the more entertaining parts of that whole event. When Troy Denning was there to talk about the upcoming Halo Outcasts novel. Obviously, that was also when they were like, by the way, there's going to be a sick new Didact story coming out, and everybody at the community stage was freaking out. I was in the front row, so everyone got to see me freak out live on camera on the live stream. Oh yeah, I think actually people could see me if you go back in the live stream. There's some dude sitting to the middle right that throws his arms in the air when there's a Didact story revealed. That's me. So when that happened, though, the wildest stuff. I mean, it was so fantastical that I went onto Twitter and I tagged you and I basically just said, we're gossiping about you. And there's a picture of EPITAPH. And so that was one of the...
I think that's what made me go look it up because I hadn't seen it yet.
It was great.
Your tag sent me
Perfect.
to look at it.
I fully accept responsibility. Oh man. Well, and now that we're all wrapped up there, I think unfortunately, folks, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. It's gonna be just a couple more days, I promise. But whenever it drops, it's gonna be exciting. We're gonna talk about EPITAPH through and through this time. So if you've read the novel and you want to get some sick conversation, just absolutely fantastic conversation, then you're gonna want to be here on Thursday. So please join us then, and we'll see you guys when that comes around. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for the first time. Well, you're going to say this is the second time, Mrs. Gay, but thank you for joining us. And we'll see you guys.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And we'll see you guys when we're talking back on EPITAPH.
The library was produced and published by JumperScape Audio. Funding was provided by our fantastic patrons on Patreon. If you enjoy the show and wish to support JumperScape's future projects or get some sweet benefits, join our Patreon at patreon.com/JumperScape or become part of this truly special community at discord.gg/JumperScape. Thank you for your listenership, and we hope you enjoyed.
The Halo universe is filled with wonder, mystery, and fascinating discoveries around every corner. With so much to explore, four friends decided it was about time that they booted up their consoles and discussed this universe that has grabbed their attention since childhood. JumperScape Audio kindly welcomes you to join them in the library.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the library. If you were here on Tuesday, you know exactly what we're doing. You know exactly what's up. We're talking about Epitaph, baby, and we're talking all about it because we have no holds barred on this one. We're talking everything. So, once again, joining us, the fantastic author of the Ace of Spades trilogy, Rubicon Protocol, this novel, Epitaph, such a major contributor to the Halo franchise as a whole, especially in the novels. Welcome back, Mrs. Kelly Gay.
Hi, everyone.
we just jumped off, so we're just kind of having fun.
Thank you for the introduction.
We just jumped off from the first one, so we're kind of just having fun now. So we like to have fun here.
Yeah. We do like to have fun here.
So honestly, I have absolutely zero preparation on how to jump into this novel because I was not prepared for what the novel presented to me. But I guess I could open up right off the bat with where this novel takes us. Did you have to play on the maps when you were writing for locations such as in Halo 3, the actual map Epitaph? Did you have to actually go into those maps to get a good visualization of those locations, or was it just you're kind of either going off of memory or someone assisted? Like, that sounds difficult to try to translate a multiplayer map into a written format.
Yeah. Which is Warlord now, as one of my favorite maps, and it was on my short list to use if I ever was able to match it up to something I was writing about. So no, that one wasn't difficult to explain in writing, just because the setting lends itself really well to description because it contains all the things that we're already familiar with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like the rocks, the monoliths, the turning sky, the reader can easily build those images in their mind. So that was not hard to do. The Epitaph map, the Spire in particular, I found that kind of challenging because, you can run and play it. And I have played them before, and I also did go back and run through them. And if I was feeling really lazy and didn't want to fire up the Xbox, I just watch YouTube videos. But that one, I just found the alien structure of it. It's complex, architecture, and readers who hadn't played the map before would have no idea what you're trying to explain. So I did find that somewhat challenging, just to kind of explain it so that they could get an idea of what it looked like,
mm-hmm.
And present it in the right way. And so using similarities to other things so they could kind of build that picture in their mind. That's really, I think that's the first time I've ever really struggled with describing a map, because there was another map in, was it Renegades?
I believe so.
Yeah, I can't even remember what it was now. But that was easy too. This was the first time. Just the Spire. It just, it's so different the way it's shaped and put together, and you have to look down on it and look at the sides, and But yeah, I did play through them and run through them. So
it was a wonderful edition. I very much remember the first time that I was listening and reading through that moment. It was it took a second to click. I was like, wait a minute, why does this feel familiar? I'm not just imagining what I'm reading right now. I'm straight up remembering what I'm reading right now. How am I doing that? And it took me a second to realize, oh, wait a second. The book's called Epitaph. I wonder if that was fantastic. And also an incredible reveal for it to be because we've wondered what Epitaph has been about this entire time. I think we're going to have to talk a lot more in depth about the number of mysteries that you resolved with this novel. But one of them is, where is Mendicant Bias? And we have where he's rested, where he's been laid to rest. We have the location now. Yep. We have the location of the Didact's parents, where they were killed. And all of this was set up, and it was mind blowing. I mean, that's the part that made me think that this had to have been such a challenging thing to figure out? Because I mean, did you know that you wanted these maps to be involved, or is it something that was, especially with Warlord, was that something that you really wanted to include? Was that a concept you had come up with?
Yeah. I have certain things that I really love in lore and little pieces that I find when I'm researching other novels, and I'll just kind of set them aside and think, this is really cool. I really love it. I'm going to save it and hopefully be able to use it. Sometimes, it doesn't work. I don't like to force things into the writing if it's not natural.
Yeah.
But Warlord is definitely one of those I thought would work very well bring the Didact past the life and them standing there and the sky is turning, and its relation to the I don't know how to say it, cradle conflict. Surprisingly, like when we're talking about it, like in house, we all say different, pronounce things differently. Even like when we were doing like 343 Guilty Spark, and we're like, is it Chacus or Chalkus? We don't really know.
We have that conversation in the book club all the time.
I mean, I've heard it pronounced in 2 different audiobooks both ways.
Exactly.
Yeah. Everybody does it different. And when we do an audiobook, like, they'll send me a list of, the narrator will send me a list of things that they would like for me to pronounce, especially stuff I create myself, so they get it right. But always there's like these things in Halo lore. It's just like, it's one or the other,
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know. But yeah, so the conflict, they were already in place for that map. So then it was just kind of working things around. Well, can I use this? And then does the timing work? Because the conflicts took place during a certain time, and it had to be a time, where his parents could be living, because, Forerunner history spreads millions of years. And so, when it works, it's really great. It's really, really, really great. And it's like you feel like you just fit a puzzle piece that you didn't even intend to fit. It just like happened naturally. So those are really great. And that's kind of what happened with the Warlord map.
Awesome. I love that. And actually, speaking of lore, I mean, we're not just talking about referencing from lore. We're talking about you created an entire origin story for the Didact, his youth, who he was, his story.
Yeah.
Like you caught many off guard. I can say that firsthand. There was a lot of people in there that were not expecting to get that story in this novel. Was that along with the other things that the Didact experienced, the other locations, the other historical events, the other characters? Was that at all? I'm assuming it was. Was that all a challenge to figure out exactly what the Didact would experience on his journey?
I don't know. I didn't really see it as a challenge. I was really excited to get in there and figure it out. And really, I didn't do a lot of like prep. I didn't feel like I had to figure it all out before I started. We had talked about the synchrons with 343 and the outline that we had.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just a lot of connective tissue that had to go through the book. And I didn't pre-plan that. So I didn't, actually, I think I just, I think for about a month or 2, I just like walked around and didn't do any work and just let it kind of percolate in my head, without really like settling. Yeah, I'm going to go here. He's going to do this and that. But just kind of let it sit a little bit in my head. And then I just started writing, and I kind of let it evolve on its own. And then after I finally had that darn rough draft done, then I could go back in and see where I needed to start making more connections and saying, hey, this is all great, but we really need more here. That especially happened with the Warden and Haruspis. Like Haruspis was originally just a character that was going to take the Didact through the synchrons of his life. But I just like, you realize as you go, things need to be fleshed out more. And backstories need to be created for certain characters, and to explain motivations for why they do things, and to make you, the reader, care about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually really fun. It's just kind of let it evolve on its own, and then go back in there and see where I could start like fluffing it out and creating like some really cool things. We're not on spoiler now, are we? We can say whatever we want.
We can say whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
You could listen.
Okay.
Like, there's some exciting things to talk about with that, because actually there was one thing that was, I think it was brought up by someone within our book club on the Discord. With the Didact's origin story that we now know, which is, I mean, I reread that a couple times, I think. His origin story, was it something that you were aware of / intended for his story to be so, at least based on what I was reading, so utterly similar to the Master Chief's origin story? Both of them tragedy when they were young, both of them raised into a warriorship that they didn't choose, and both of them becoming legends in their own right, eventually leading to both of them being semi-responsible for Cortana's eventual change at the end.
No, I didn't even think about the Master Chief when I was going through the Didact story, except for, the scenes where he's involved. But I didn't even think about it. And what's amazing about that is this is like Halo, right? Things that go around come around. And the librarian, you know what I'm saying? Like, the librarian talks about that too. They, cycles repeat. And we have all that stuff about the Gene Song and, stuff like that. So, people can draw their own conclusions there, but I think it's something wonderfully natural that happened.
Yes, absolutely. I love the potentiality.
Yeah. And like you said before, or commenting on what I had said before, is that your subconscious, when you're writing, you never know what comes out of it or what gets pulled out. But yeah, I thought it was great. But like, I've heard that too from people.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I didn't start out even thinking about it.
That's fantastic. I love that sort of stuff. That was something I was very curious about, but there was something I was even more curious about, and I'm almost certain I will not get the answer that I'm hoping for, and it's going to make me sad. But his origin story, I'm staying on this for a while. I freaking love his origin story. Okay. His original name, it wasn't Shadow of Sundered Star. It's who he is now. Are we allowed to know who he was before?
No.
Dang it.
Just a short and simple. No, sorry, you can't.
No.
On to the
Maybe
next question.
someday.
Maybe someday.
Dude, straight up that.
Well, that's what I was.
Go ahead.
Like all things in Halo, like, maybe someday you might know, but not today.
I don't know if you've listened to Hunt the Truth, but James, would that no just happen to make me think of the... Okay, so you just, to me just then, you gave me the exact vibe of, I don't know if you remember her, but the flight attendant was like, no, you're done. It's such a good scene. I love it. But that will greatly sadden me for the rest of this episode, but it's okay.
He'll get over it.
I'm
don't
sorry.
be sorry.
If we're ever allowed to share.
You did so much loose end tying and question answering. You're allowed to open new ones. You've earned that right.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, this is something that's more related to the artistry of the writing, because that was something that I really loved. I liked reading through the first chapter. It was an early release. It was released on Halo Waypoint, I think, if I remember correctly. And I read through that over and over again. It dropped while it was actually kind of funny. I was out on a walk in this nature reserve with my wife, and it sort of dropped. And much to her chagrin, I just started reading it out loud on repeat because I wanted to gather as much as I could. But no, she was fine with it. She's like, oh, Halo again. Okay. And I really love the way that you described the opening. I don't have the novel here with me, and I don't remember it perfectly, but the paraphrase that I can come up with was, he was fire and rage. It's like the first sentence of any novel grabs me immediately, and I love that opener.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to know about it was, you described Didact when he appears through this molten core with embers and such. Was that the concept that you knew you were going to go forward with when you were entering in, or were there other concepts of his formation, who he was as this sort of semi-spiritual essence in this way station before the domain?
No, there was no other beginning for him in my head other than that one.
It's such a good one.
Always from the outset. Yeah, always from the outset, I had this vision of him like basically emerging into the wasteland from the same fiery hell, that he left in the physical world. So to me, that was like just so striking, him falling into the composer streams, and it's horrific, and everything is disintegrating. And so I wanted that to be the first thing that readers see as he's, reforming and coming back. It's like he came out the same way he went in, basically. But, I thought, it was really had such an impact in my head, the way I was seeing it, and the vision you have of that, all that like just rage and fire. And I'm one of those people that will pick up a book and read the first sentence, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't hook me, I might still read it, or I'll just, put it down and wait a little bit. First pages and first sentences are like, so important.
That's what I'm saying.
You only have that one chance, that one chance to grab a reader is on the first page.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just immediately, there was no other way in my head, at least, to bring him forward.
Yes, it was a beautiful rendition. I loved the way that it was. I loved that entire first chapter. Like I said, read it over and over again. I was astounded because, of course, the last time we had seen the Didact, it was him getting, unfortunately, absolutely demolished by all of those composers going up in smoke.
Yeah.
And so it was a rather destructive end. And I'm like, that can't be it for the Didact. There's got to be something more to it. And so opening up with, he's just here in this way station, and he has no idea who he is, what he's done, what's coming. Most importantly, it completely changes the vibe. It changes it from something of destruction, which I think is probably what most people associate the Didact with, just a madman who just wanted to destroy Phoenix, Arizona for no reason.
New Phoenix, my bad.
But then shifting that to, this guy has something more to him. There's something else going on. In that first chapter, this isn't even a question. This is just me saying it. It immediately opens up with that, where you're now very curious to know what he's going to discover, who he's going to, like, what he's going to think about himself, and what the journey is he's going to be on when we're basically just stuck out here in the middle of nowhere, essentially. So,
yeah, that first chapter, I actually really like it too, but to be honest, I was really concerned about chapters 2 through 4 because I had a lot of content to get readers up to speed with, or people who had never read the Forerunner saga, because this has to be a standalone novel. They have to know what happened in those books.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, I think, honestly, if you asked me what the most challenging thing about writing Epitaph was, it was those chapters, because those are chapters where you could just easily lose someone because you're just going over backstory. So with the synchrons that 343 had talked about in their outline, they're so perfect because they lent so well to using those like important moments in his life to then tell you what happened. But that was a struggle for me because normally I'm just like, get on the first page and go. So having to deliver that backstory, and I didn't want to rewrite Greg.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in the book. You know, you don't want to like go back and just rewrite what someone else wrote, or tell it in a similar way. So I did struggle with that. I think that was the most challenging part of the whole book.
Which
were those parts, but
go ahead.
they were necessary.
Yes.
No, I was just saying, you know, I don't like to have to do that, but it was necessary for the story. It was necessary to remind everybody what he had been through, and it was necessary for new readers so we could call it a standalone novel. You don't have to read the whole saga just to read this book. I mean, hopefully, you know, you might want to read the saga after that, but that was just one of those things that was like, it was hard to do. I will admit that.
Well, I mean, you did a good job, because actually our native friend James here has not read that trilogy.
Nope.
And he started with your novel.
Oh, okay.
And he was still able to track with it.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
And definitely I'm interested to go back. I felt well informed.
Oh, good. Okay.
I've obviously deep dived into Halo lore through like summaries and other like lore dump type videos. So I was familiar with all the events described, but it was cool it made me want to just go and experience them the way they were meant to be experienced. And that's by going through those books.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you did a good job.
Oh, thank you.
Now I do have to say, you with retelling that story in your own way, trying to get all of that information in those, which, let's be real, that's a very small period of, like, small portion of time to, especially in a novel, to fill in that much information. So you did a great job on that front. However, you made me tear up when you started off with the war sphinxes. I wasn't okay with that, and I'm still not okay.
Oh.
It was painful. It hurt, but it was great.
Oh.
Which actually was, I actually wanted to know about that. Was there like I know that you've said already that you like to just sort of write, you like to go, but with this, obviously it took a little bit more thought. Was it at all part of the challenge to figure out in what order should he rediscover himself? What does he need to know about himself first before he starts to realize, oh, I'm the Didact, I'm awesome, you know, that sort of thing?
Yeah. No, I don't. I think for me, and the way we also had the outline when we were just discussing how he would go through the important moments that he was remembering.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just aligned with the Forerunner saga so well that you know, I didn't want to mess with kind of pulling them out and putting them in different places. I just felt like that would be more confusing to the reader when we already have a big information, you know, download on all this stuff. So we really just kept it as simple as possible, and just kind of followed the trajectory of what happens in those 3 books in the Forerunner saga.
Okay.
Because I think if you go through them, each one, in terms of the timeline of his life, happens. Essentially, I could be wrong.
I mean, it seems like it.
Podcast,
yeah.
I will have to go look.
Oh gosh, darn it! I have to read those books again.
That wasn't true. You know, I have to read my own book just to remember what I read.
Which
that happens a lot more than you think.
I'm certain by this point, those words might have gotten a little tired after having to write those for so long.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, like the publishing process takes so long that the last time I was writing the Didact was back in summer.
Wow.
So I have, because they need a lot of, maybe, I think we did our final read through just this fall is coming. And then, you know, then you're just like reading for errors and things like that. But so there's a lot of time that passes that people don't realize that, you know, the book has to go in-house. It has to go through the process and the printing and all that stuff. So by the time you guys read it, I've probably forgotten like half of that.
Oh man, it's such an
Which is not true.
thing.
I'm exaggerating.
I mean, and yeah, I would figure. I mean, by this point, I think with the conversations that we've had with Denning in the past, it does seem like with authoring a novel, some of that information is stuck there forever.
Yeah. Some of it stays in your brain forever. You're like, you'll never, ever, ever forget it. And then other times people will say, you know, well, I really like when you did this, and you're thinking, did I do that? Or what's that mean? And you just like, you know, it's holding that many novels in your head and remembering everything. It's just impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I just need to brush up on my own stuff too.
I feel like that can even be true of just reading novels, because I feel like "aya" is going to be part of my vocabulary for like the rest of the year.
Oh my god!
I mean, Keith was hitting
I think
that
like
"aya" so well.
Yeah.
So I actually, now that we've talked a little bit about the Didact's origin, I want to talk about close to the end, not quite at his end, when we have this moment where he's about to face the Warden Eternal. We're about to have this final confrontation. And let me tell you, did not expect a massive, like, actual conflict in a novel that had been this philosophical and spiritual and reflective as this novel. Was it the plan to have Warden Eternal be that final bad guy? Was he supposed to be the final antagonist?
No.
No.
Hey there, Halo fans. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with our friends right after these messages.
Originally, there really wasn't an antagonist in the book. It was more of him, you know, moving through the synchrons of his life, making realizations, seeing what was happening with Cortana and the created, and seeing himself in her. But we realized pretty quickly that that's not gonna that won't carry a whole novel. So then we started going back to the drawing board a little bit, and I really wanted to use the Warden because it's such a natural progression to use him, because he is the gatekeeper of the domain. So and because Cortana was such a pivotal character in the book, and we knew that ahead of time. They worked 3-1 chart in there. So, you know, I thought it would be just so cool that, you know, here we are, or they might have actually thought that, I can't remember. But so cool seeing the, you know, her interactions with the Warden, and then you know, giving the Didact a final battle was really important to me, because I didn't want him to go out just, you know, ruminating on his life, and I wanted him to put his armor on one more time, you know, and go to battle and have, you know, have that well-deserved heroic sort of ending. But no, the Warden wasn't an antagonist in the beginning. But really turned out pretty cool, I think.
Oh, it did. It was. It's kind of shocking. I think I'm quite happy with how it all turned out. It was kind of shocking that it wasn't the intention, because it just seemed like it was so fluid. But you know.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to ask you. You literally answered one of my biggest questions in there, and that was if it was always the intention to have the created in Cortana be like this mirror image for the Didact to kind of learn from his past mistakes. Because I thought that was very fitting.
They were they had that all in place when with their initial outline when they asked me to write him. They wanted him to go through those moments in his life and see her somehow. I mean, the connective dots weren't there in terms of how he saw it and how he got to talk to her and things like that, and him being part of the behind the scenes in Halo 5, like all that stuff that you have to piece together as you're writing. But yeah, their idea of having her be a foil to his past, I thought was really brilliant.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like you kind of answered it right there. Was it a challenge to kind of weave the Didact's influence into Halo 5 and even Halo Infinite's story? Because like some of his interactions with Cortana are immediately like preceding or after a like in-game cutscene. Yeah. So I feel like it just retroactively adds a lot to those moments.
Yeah, no, it was it wasn't hard. It was really fun because that's my jam. That's my jam. I love to connect things, and I love to see where I can expand on what you think you already know. That's just really fun to me. So doing all that and putting him behind the scenes, so that when you realize he's behind the scenes, you're like, no, all along he was there. And it makes sense. And it's not like he's forced. You don't feel like it's forced or anything, like you're forcing a puzzle piece in. It just like works really, really well. But all that, I didn't find it daunting. I just like all that stuff is so cool to me. So.
Oh, definitely. I
enjoyed it.
I especially love after the Exuberant Witness frees the Cryptum. What did he call himself? A joyous like observer, something like he's just smug, very smug.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he laughs at her, which is great.
I love thinking of the Didact laughing. I like that he laughs a lot in this book. Actually, he doesn't do much laughing in Halo 4. I think he needed some.
He needed to take a chill pill.
And you know, like it's funny because in the and I think Alex and Jeff and I were talking about this early on that people don't realize it, but the Didact has a sense of humor. If you read the Forerunner Saga, you'll see little bits of his humor come out. And it's just so seamless. And Greg's writing is so good. But he does have a sense of humor, and he does say funny things. And so we wanted to kind of bring that into this book, too, because it's very much part of his character. I mean, he's lost some of that as he's suffered and gone through all these horrible things, but as he starts to kind of become his old self again, we start seeing that humor again. So those funny moments were just like so fun to write.
Oh yeah, and besides the Didact, was there a character in this book that you had the most fun writing or were the most excited to write for?
Yeah, Haruspis.
I love Haruspis.
Yes.
I was hoping that was the answer.
I love my little man with a funny hat.
The funny hat I conjured in my brain is so, it makes me giggle.
I know. Jeff Easterling loves that funny hat. He said we all need to get on a Zoom call and I'll wear like a white hat one day.
Well, I mean, like I imagined, like I was like, what's a hat that's so funny it would make the Didact giggle? Like, this version of the Didact giggle, and the result in my brain, I can't even describe.
No, and I gotta say, Haruspis right next to the Didact is pretty much my favorite, just because he like. he keeps on just throwing me for a loop. Like when he's just, would you like this sword that can slaughter the warden? And Drax is like, huh?
The what?
Oh yeah, I just happened to have
he's
this.
he just that's one of the examples that I was talking about earlier about like the evolution of the book. And he just kind of evolved very slowly, like through the writing, and just became a bigger and bigger and bigger character and more important, closely related to the Didact and really becoming his friend, which I think is really cool.
Mm-hmm. I actually want to call attention to one specific scene because I listened to it over and over again on the audiobook because it sounded so good. But when the Didact tries to use Haruspis to force his way into the domain, and Haruspis is like, "You dare!" and he's like, "I do."
Yeah. Sometimes he's very blunt, you know. Like that too. If you give a very close reading to the Forerunner Saga, you'll see the Didact's humor, and he's got this like really funny bluntness about him that definitely wanted to exploit that and put it in Epitaph. So I'm glad like you noticed.
And I also just got to say, I love the visual of the Didact just very casually killing human AIs that he finds.
Yeah.
I actually remember the scene with the green AI, and and with that he shoved his hand into her chest, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, he might feel sorry for her for like a half second.
Didact he's not having any of it anymore. He's got the truth to him.
Oh.
I'm tired of these human AI in this domain.
And actually, I did want to call attention because, and I do have only two more things to really point out because we're unfortunately almost out of time, and I'm mad about that. The two things I wanted to call to attention, for one thing, and this is more since you yourself are someone who really is passionate about Halo lore, as you've already talked about. I mean, I understand the significance of what happens in Epitaph. The fact that the domain has been secure. It's not accessible. It's just we're done. Like the domain has been. It's over. Yeah. In your mind, would that mean that the domain no longer carries the weight that it would have had going forward? Like, do you think that this is now the end of not only the Didact story, but potentially even the domain story?
No, I don't think so. I feel like the domain is always going to have an importance. I don't think it's been written off for this book. I mean, it very well could be. I don't know what their plans are for the future of the domain, but I feel like we get closure there, but it's still a great, big, existing, important thing in the universe. I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
No, that
really.
actually perfectly answers it, because the one thing that I didn't want to hear was, yeah. I wanted to know for sure that like at least it's uncertain.
Sometimes I don't know things too, so
that's perfectly fine. I mean, because the domain it's such a fascinating thing to me, and I didn't think that from the novel that the domain is just over and done with. It was just it was very clear that now that the Didact is essentially just, he's secured it. He's gone through and he's effectively purged anything that shouldn't be there from the domain. It was sort of like, okay, so the domain now, you could almost say that it's been nearly restored, if not restored completely. I mean, seeing the librarian at the end, I thought that was a clear indication that something had been returned to the way that it once was, because, I mean, we haven't seen the librarian in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if the domain will be utilized, in future media in any way. And there certainly is a type of closure to it. But it's definitely just an existing thing that, you can't kind of pretend it doesn't exist, I guess.
Sure.
So I really don't know. I really don't know what the future holds for the domain.
That is a great thing to experience. I'm okay with that. Mystery is literally Halo's backbone, so I'm all down for that.
Yes.
I suppose my last question for you, and I want to be very specific on it because leaving it open ended won't carry the same weight because I want to know about this one specific thing. I'm certain that their interest is still there to add to the Halo universe, to continue telling stories. At least I think every reader hopes so. And what I'm wondering is if there's any interest that you might have. I know that it's not entirely up to the author's choice, but would it be something in your interest to tell the story, a more personal, deep story of Forthencho?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I think because I actually love his character, but I think it depends on the story. If they ever did one, what kind of stories they would want told. I can tell you, I love the idea of ancient humanity being on par with the Forerunners. And we don't see a lot of that currently explored in current media. So it's like a gold mine for an author, you know. And I love origin stories, as you know. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, if it was something like that, I'm sure. But I don't know if there's ever going to be any return to that. I think if I did something, it would have to be, it'd have to have some sort of relevance to what's happening in Halo now in the current story. Because I like connecting the ancient past to current events. But I really don't know. I couldn't say.
Well,
it's not a no. It's not a no, but it's not a yes.
Well, I guess I have kind of a tag-on question to that. Do you have any bucket list Halo characters that you'd love to write a book about?
Oh, bucket list Halo. Well, my bucket list was writing Cortana, which I got to do in this book.
Very well.
So, yeah, so that's crossed off the list. I've always wanted to write about plasma jockeys and Forerunner Saga. I've said that a dozen times, so that probably doesn't come as a surprise. I really love Professor Anders.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and plus, you know, Spirit of Fire, that's my jam. So, I don't know. I have some that I don't tell anybody about just because I'm not ready to say it. But I think I'll just let you wonder about it.
That's fine because go ahead.
Yeah, I crossed off my main bucket list one, so that's probably the answer I would have given you had you asked me before EPITAPH. So.
Well, I can say that there's one particular thing that basically everyone in our book club wants to have happen, including me. And we're not saying that, you know, you should tell us whether it's going to happen or not. You definitely shouldn't if you know, but everyone really wants Ryan to find the Spirit of Fire. Everyone really wants that to happen.
Yeah, I want that to happen too.
Halo Wars 3.
That's all I can say about it.
Well, I appreciate that. This is all just good fun.
The whole point of that story, the Ryan Forge story, was like because I'm personally invested and I love John Forge and Spirit of Fire. So yeah, I've always wanted her to find the ship. I don't know if she'll be the one to do it. I haven't gone that far, but I'd be game for sure.
All right. Well, we really appreciate that. Just sort of poking fun. It's all in good fun. Nothing. I'm not trying to get nothing out of you.
Well, no, that's okay. okay. That's okay.
Well, unfortunately, our time has come to a close. Thank you so much for giving me so much time to talking about this. Your novel, Epitaph,
You're welcome.
is fantastic.
Welcome.
It
It was
is.
fun.
It's going to be reread multiple times this year. I already know that by me, and also a lot of our. Actually, I think the guy who read your novel in one day already started reading it because he just got the book in physical copy, so he's just reading it again now. So just be prepared, because there's going to be plenty of our local Halo lore YouTubers that are going to start talking a lot about your novel.
Good.
Well, thank you then for joining us once again. I hope this has been a fantastic time. I know it's been a fantastic time for us. We've had a great time talking with you.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you think that, as we close out, is there anything that you think that your readers may be looking forward to for things that you might be doing next, or things that you're doing just off the career thing, things that you got going on so far?
No, it's pretty silent on that front. So I'm on vacation right now.
Understandable. You were looking at Epitaph for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been doing back to back books. So I'm taking a little bit of time off, and then I will jump into something. I'm
All
not
right.
sure yet.
Well, it's well deserved. So congratulations. I'm glad you got that time off.
Oh yeah, and thank you for taking a little time out of your vacation to talk to us.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much once again for joining us. And to our audience, if you want to talk about Epitaph, if you want to hang out with the people that are here listening to the show, that is discord.gg/JumperScape. If you want to support the show directly, you can go to patreon.com/JumperScape. Lots of stuff that we can offer you there. But aside from that, thank you once again, Mrs. Kelly Gay, for joining us. And I guess to everybody else, we'll see you guys next week with whatever topic we're talking about, because we have no idea now. So we'll see you guys next week.
The library was produced and published by JumperScape Audio. Funding was provided by our fantastic patrons on Patreon. If you enjoy the show and wish to support JumperScape's future projects or get some sweet benefits, join our Patreon at patreon.com/JumperScape or become part of this truly special community at discord.gg/JumperScape. Thank you for your listenership, and we hope you enjoyed.